Hello and welcome back to the second installment of your library orientation. I'm Elizabeth Walker, your online and distance learning librarian, as well as the liaison to the nursing department. When we last met for our orientation session, you might recall that we talked about a number of different things, and today's presentation is going to build on top of those topics. We talked about such things as the resources that are available to you through our library, how to navigate to get to the online library website. You might recall there's 3 different ways I showed you to get there. We took a tour of the library website so that you became more familiar with the different resources that we offer. I also discussed with you how, when you're off campus, you sign into our services in order to access our resources. We then discussed how to plan and strategize your research so that you can have a more effective search when you're in the database. We then discussed why the deep web, or where the databases are located, is an important place to search, because just searching with things such as Google and Bing only gets at the surface of the web, and what you need to do, especially as an advanced researcher, is get to the meatier things that are in the deep web. We also watched a video called Searching 101 with Ruth Gaba of the University of Wisconsin-Concordia. She gave us a great 5-minute presentation about the basics of search. And then we dove into searching for ebooks and journals. And I wrapped us up with not only showing you examples of these searches, but also how to reach out to us for further help in the library. Today, we're going to turn our focus onto 3 primary objectives. The first objective is that I want you to be able to identify some advanced researching techniques so that you can go out there and have a more effective search and get items of better quality that are going to be applicable to you in a better frame of time. Once you can identify those, you'll start using those routinely in your database searches. And finally, I want you to have a bit better understanding of how to evaluate internet resources when you do need to go out and find something from the general web. The first thing I want to show you is how to harness subject searching versus keyword searching, or at least become familiar with the concept. Both kinds of searching are useful, but you may be wondering what the difference is between the two. You may recall, if I look forward to a slide that we're going to use again in a moment, a lot of times, with this being a record of a book from our catalog, when we go out and search, we put in some words into a blank in our search box. And we choose our limiters, we press search, and we come back with a list of entries, and this is an example of one entry. You can see in this sample that the terms advanced practice nursing are highlighted all over the place. They're highlighted in the title, they're highlighted all over the place in the contents, and applicable words are also located in the subject line over here. This was a result of typing in the terms advanced practice nursing and pressing search, and that was a keyword search. The item that you're searching with, whether it is our book catalog or our journal databases, goes out, takes the terms that you input, and searches anywhere it has full text access to in order to return a result to you. So whether it's in the title line, whether it's in the bibliography line, the contents line, as long as it contains that word or words, it is returning a valid result to you. When we start to harness subject searching, however, what it is looking at is a specific line in your subject, or that is labeled as subject rather, in a specific word pattern that database uses. So for example, you can see here that for this book titled Advanced Practice Nursing Essentials for Role Development, one of the subjects here was nurse practitioners, another was nursing, another was nurses, and you get to this specific line by, when you are in the search screen, you set it up as typing in what you want to find exactly as it appears in the subject line of that database, and you switch the drop-down box to subject so that it searches this line only for that particular line. So if I go back again to the previous slide that we were just on, you'll see that I described subject searching as allowing you to focus on the primary topic of the overall article. So as you're doing research, and you're finding more and more items that are giving primary definitions or focusing in on the idea that you're looking for, subject searching can be a great way to quickly start to hone in on the topic you're after. But notice you will have to take those down specifically. So if you're keeping notes like we talked about, you can start to write down these subject patterns that you see. Of course, keyword searching, where it searches anywhere within the abstract or anywhere within the full text item, is still certainly valid, and you may be doing keyword searching on one line and subject searching on another line and combining those two techniques together. Both are going to help you get to what you want. And most often you're going to be starting your searching with keyword searching, but as you start to learn those subjects that pertain to the particular topic you're on, certainly start to employ some of those things to your advantage. We just took a look at a book record as far as where the database, or the catalog in this case, which is a kind of database, where it's searching. When you're doing a keyword search, it can search anywhere within here, but even with an electronic book, this electronic book is on a separate database, so it's not searching through the full text here. When we're looking at an article, however, the full text and the abstract are in the same place, or the record of the item rather. And so when you're keyword searching, it can search in any of these lines as well as the full text. But when you subject search, it is still only looking in this subject box that's in the abstract, or in the record rather. So keyword searching allows your database or catalog to look anywhere it has full text access to, including the record, including the full text if it's in the same location. Subject searching focuses you much more narrowly on the subject that you're looking for, with exact phrasing just as you see it. The next advanced research technique I would like to introduce to you is the idea of using Boolean logic. You've probably seen this a number of times in your research and maybe not even realized that it was a particular tool that you can use or alter. But I want to first start you off with a 26-second video that's going to give a brief explanation, followed by an interactive website that's going to help explain this topic better. Let's take a listen to this video from the University of Illinois Libraries on Boolean logic.
Boolean logic, developed by mathematician George Boole, allows the user to combine words or phrases using commands. AND is used to narrow, more and, more specific. OR is used to expand. NOT is used to exclude. Here is an example from our catalog. If you have any questions, ask a librarian.
In this example, Rockwell Schrock is using the example of doing research using the terms endangered and birds. In this case, if I put the word endangered on one line and birds on the other, and I used the word and, so I said endangered and birds, what the database is going to give me back is items that show both the words endangered and birds in the same article. So in other words, both words have to appear within the article or within the record for the return result to be valid. If instead, though, I change that drop down from and to or, and I said endangered or birds, the database will give me back search results that either have the word endangered or have the word birds within the article or record. Both may appear within the same, but they can also appear just on their own, and it would be considered a valid return. Finally, in the last case, if I were to say endangered, not birds, all I'm going to get back is any article that talks about something that is endangered, but it will kick out results that have the word birds in it. For example, let's say what I wanted to report on was endangered primates, but the majority of the items I got back had to do with birds. This may be a case where I would want to say, don't give me anything else that has birds in it. I want to focus on other endangered species. So by saying not, I exclude everything that has to do with something that's not what I want. You might think about how that may apply to your own research topics as you go through your program. Perhaps you're doing a case study on something and one particular topic keeps popping up. So let's say you're talking about the homeless population and healthcare, but what keeps popping up is, for example, HIV patients. Perhaps HIV is not the demographic area you want to focus on, so you may want to say homeless, not HIV. The next technique I would like to talk about is truncation. Truncation refers to using assigned symbols that allow us to put in the root of a word, or even if it's not an official root, the first part of a word that serves as a root, and allows us to represent multiple words at once so that we can capture as many different results that might be valid as possible. You can see in the example on the PowerPoint that I've said child with an asterisk behind it. In this particular case, the word child is the root. The asterisk represents any alteration of an ending that may come after it, which would include child, so no ending. Might include somebody's last name of Childs with an S. It might represent the plural apostrophe S of childs, or it could even represent children. If I take a look at a website from Colorado State University, they discuss how to search effectively using truncation. And in their website, they give an example of cell phones and driving. And they take a look at how you can use truncation in order to get more results than you would by itself. Sometimes truncation, and most often truncation, is done with an asterisk. There may be some databases that would use a question mark to replace just a single letter and a pound sign for a different kind of replacement. In the example that you see flashing on the screen, it's showing what would happen if you used cell, C-E-L-L, as the root and a star afterwards. You could get terms like cellular, cellulite, cells, cellar, cellophane, cellist, and you get the idea from there how that would work with other words. There are many places that truncation actually works in. It works oftentimes in databases, in search engines, and even in our book catalogs. If you try it and you get 0 results, try again without and see if that term just simply doesn't exist in the location you're at. But it works most often in most of those places. There's many reasons you may use truncation, which would include things such as plural words. In this example, you see the word teacher with an asterisk, and that captures teachers as well as teacher. It also captures things such as alternate spellings. If we were to try theater, T-H-E-A-T, and put in a star, we would capture both the English and the British spelling of the word theater, and also the word labor, as in the example seen below. In the example that they showed how you can use L-A-B star R to represent a combination of letters in between two other letters, so it's not always just an ending that it would represent. I will try to provide this link elsewhere, but if you have questions or further interest about truncation, I would highly recommend that you take a moment to go through this tutorial in full. I now want to turn our attention to those times when we need an internet resource, such as when we need to go out and get statistics to fill in some gaps in our information. When you're evaluating a website, there are 5 key points that you need to look for in any given website to make sure that you're using a resource that would be valid for your research. The 5 main ideas that you need to be looking for have to do with assuring the accuracy of the information, the authority of the author who's actually writing the website, whether or not the author or corporate author is objective in their delivery, how current the material is, and the scope of the coverage that's given. I'd like to watch a quick tutorial on YouTube. This brief tutorial from Hartness Library at Vermont Tech will go over some of those key points in just a little bit more detail than what I just described.
If a stranger on the street came up to you and started speaking, you'd probably want to know more about him and what he's saying before you took him seriously. The same goes for websites. Our way of viewing the world is based on the information we encounter. We use that information to make lots of different kinds of decisions throughout our lifetimes. There's a lot of information online, and since anyone can post it, it's crucial to evaluate websites before you trust the information you find. Evaluating information is essential for your assignments. It will make your research better, strengthen your arguments, and get you better grades. The first thing to consider is the type of website and where the website is coming from. Is the website providing a service or product to sell? Are there sponsored links or ads? .coms or commercial websites are usually motivated to make money in some way. Is the page supported by a group, organization, or company? What does the group stand to gain by convincing others of its points? .orgs are created by non-profit or for-profit organizations or associations. Is the website from an educational or governmental institution? These websites are more likely to provide objective information and don't contain ads or sponsored links because they are highly regulated. Is the information coming from a personal website, a blog, or a website intended for sharing personal opinions about an issue? Tildes or percent signs followed by personal names or initials usually indicate personal websites. When you've identified the purpose of the website, ask yourself, who wrote this information? Is the author an expert on this topic? Is he or she very opinionated on this topic? How does that influence what they may have written? Before you use a website for research, you'll need to do some detective work about the author. If you don't immediately see an author listed, scan the perimeter of the web page for an About or an Information section. If you can't locate information about the author, backtrack to the main website address by removing characters in the URL after the .com, .gov, or .org domain. When you find an author's name, use the name and a few subject-specific keywords in a web search to get more information about other things that author might have written, or things that people might have said about him or her. That way, if you decide to use their information as a source, you can put their credibility, or their bias, in the context of your paper. If the text on a website doesn't have a designated author, or if there's no information about who is responsible for the website, that may be a red flag, and you may want to continue your search for another information source. Next, ask yourself what sort of evidence the author provides for the points that he or she is trying to make. Does the website list citations or link out to other websites, news stories, or magazine articles? What about academic sources like books from university presses or scholarly journal articles? Do the links provided actually work? Can you track down those sources and verify the evidence used on the website? If you can't find academic sources to verify the information, you may have to move on to a different source. Finally, consider when this information was published or last updated. Over time, the way a topic is addressed or written about may differ or change completely. Make sure that the site you're viewing is either up to date or published at a time that is relevant to the topic you're studying. You'd be skeptical about a stranger's word on the street, so be skeptical about websites in the same way. Make sure a website is credible by looking at the type of website and its purpose, the author and their potential bias, if the information on the website can be verified or there are references provided, and when the information was last updated.
For additional information beyond that tutorial, you may want to check out our Evaluating Internet Resources handout located at the short URL that you see on the screen, also located under our Help button on our website. Under our Help tab, by clicking on the Citation Style Guides heading, in fact, let me show you on our Lib website. If we go from the White Library's homepage, if we go to Help, and then click on Citation Style Guides, you'll see that we have several different resources for APA formatting. Do note that we have linked to the citation comparison chart between APA, MLA, and Chicago Style that is written and compiled by the OWL Style Guide people at Purdue University. We also provide a link directly to that website so that you can look at individual questions rather than just a comparison of all three styles. Note that this PDF chart is about 12 pages long. This website will allow you to look at different questions you may have individually. This index you see mentioned here is created by my colleague Karen Parsons just to provide an alternate way to look at the index besides what was already in the Blue Book. That index was something that she found not as helpful as she would have liked, and so if you find that to be true for you as well, you may want to check this out. And finally, we have a link to the APA Style blog from the people who wrote the Blue Book The American Psychological Association in this blog format answers a number of different questions that you may have as you do research about your papers. You may find that you have questions pertaining to something that's already in the book. Maybe you want to find out if they have answered it more explicitly on their website, or since this book was published in 2010, you can imagine that there may have been a number of things that changed since then. You can come here and take a search through their Google custom search bar over here on the right, and it will tell you what blog entries they have that were pertinent to that topic, and you can then click on those and read that entry to better assist yourself in the research process. Let's take a final review of the different topics we've discussed today. First, we've discussed subject versus keyword searching, giving you more tools to use in your basic search command. We've also talked about Boolean logic, using and, or, and not to differently combine words than you may have done in the past. We also talked about how wildcards are used to provide truncation of roots, where you take the basis of a word, put an asterisk, for example, on the end of that, so that you can come up with alternate endings to a particular word and expand your search, making it easier for you to do more searching all at one time. We also talked about the importance of critically evaluating web resources. And finally, we discussed different sources to help you further do APA citations. I will also provide you with this web link for additional bonus material on searching in general. It's a great interactive website from Cranfield University out of the UK to help you review some of the topics that were talked about in our previous session, as well as things we discussed today. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to me here at the White Library or to one of my colleagues using either the email, the phone number, or any of the chat services available to you on our page. You can also go to Help and click the Ask a Librarian tab to send us an email. We look forward to serving you. Let us know what you have for questions. We enjoy helping you with the research process.